name is Todd Hall, and I'm director of the University of Oxford China Center. I'm also today your host for One Big Thing in China Research, the University of Oxford China Center's program in which we introduce work that's being done on, in, or about China. It's my great pleasure today to introduce to you Marcel Schliebs and Hannah Bailey, who are researchers at the University of Oxford's very own Internet Institute. Both have been doing fascinating research on how diplomats leverage social media to present their message. Please tell us, what is your one big thing in China research for today?
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. So our research is broadly on China's public diplomacy. And by that, we mean diplomacy that's not conducted through usual channels, state-to-state communication, but through international broadcasting, online social media. So we look at how Chinese diplomats use social media to project their messaging. And we find, firstly, that there's a huge, in the past 5 years or so, there's been a large uptick in the number of Chinese diplomats using social media. We find in 126 countries, Chinese diplomats are using social media. We also find some suspicious activity surrounding these accounts. So we look at all the retweets of the Chinese diplomats from the Chinese diplomats' accounts over the past year, and we find that there's some kind of super spreader activity going on with a small number of accounts responsible for a large number of the retweets. And we also find that a large proportion, about 10% of users that retweeted Chinese diplomat accounts were later suspended by Twitter for suspicious activity. So broadly, our research finds that there is an inauthentic network underpinning much of the Chinese diplomats' activity on Twitter. And our research aims to bring broader awareness to this so that both industry and politicians can hopefully respond appropriately to this use of social media.
Does this look like it's something that's centrally organized, or does this look like something that various diplomats have set up on their own or is working out of various different embassies?
Hi, yeah. First, thank you for having us. I might take this question. And it's a great question, actually, because it actually leads you already to some really interesting finding, which was that on the one hand, there's a set of accounts which are presumably inauthentic, which were later suspended by Twitter for platform manipulation, and which amplify loads of diplomats, tens or hundreds even on a daily basis, and we call some of these super spreaders or high frequency super spreaders. On the other hand, also, however, there's accounts that are particularly and solely dedicated to amplifying one specific diplomat or the respective embassy. And in a deeper, more detailed case study, studying the diplomats based in London, stationed here in the UK, we find that nearly half of the retweets of the then ambassador, for example, of the PRC in London were from inauthentic, later suspended accounts. And we also find that this inauthentic network is in some degrees highly coordinated, where multiple accounts are used by the same operator to retweet diplomats over and over again in consecutive chains and so on.
So can you say a little bit more about how you went about finding these accounts?
Sure, yeah. So it's very difficult to, if you're just looking at one account, particularly on Twitter, to determine whether it's an authentic account or whether there's something problematic. Because notably on Twitter, there's no real culture of using your real name, real picture for everyone. Some people do it, especially public figures, academics, etc., journalists, but a lot of people are also on the platform without their real name or photo. So it's very difficult to just look at one account and say, you are a bot or you are a fake account. And we wanted to avoid such bold claims. Instead, what we did is we looked at behavior in a more comprehensive manner, and we tried to map out sort of overlapping patterns between accounts that signal coordination. And that could be long-termish activity, groups of accounts sleeping for months and waking up all of a sudden at the same time and amplifying only the diplomat in the UK. That could be short-term patterns, the same accounts used within seconds of each other, then sleeping for a day and again being used within seconds of each other. And then besides that, also other patterns such as language use, follow or account creation networks. And using that, we sort of more and more step by step build a puzzle where we find accounts that show so similar overlapping patterns that these patterns simply can't be, I like to call it, explained away by chance anymore. So we can establish that there's some level of coordination going on in the background, but it's a really tough methodological challenge, and much we can expect remains beyond the surface and below the tip of the iceberg, probably.
And is this what you're finding? Does this suggest that there's a lot of bots at work, or does this suggest there's people sitting at computers typing away?
We're always hesitant to use the word bot because it means different things to different people, and sometimes people can misinterpret the term. So we prefer to use the term inauthentic activity. So it's activity that's not an authentic user. So it's not just me as a user using a social media account for my own purposes. It's someone using social media in a particularly manipulative way. And for example, on Twitter, this might involve one person having multiple accounts that they use, as you said, to kind of retweet in consecutive chains. This might also involve automation. So I might have accounts that I have automatically retweet someone when they post a tweet. So what we were looking for when we conducted the research was less so bot activity, be it kind of human bot activity or automated bot activity, but we were looking for inauthentic activity. So people using social media inauthentically for some kind of purpose that wouldn't be expected from a normal user.
And there's a lot of talk right now about wolf warriors and sort of aggressive diplomacy. Do you find that the messages that are being sent are aggressive ones, or are they positive ones? Are they trolling? Are they attacking people? Or are they sort of just re-saying sort of official speak?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So in our report, we didn't specifically look at kind of the broad themes that were being discussed by these accounts, but other people have looked into this in depth and found that well, A, this has changed over time, but B, there's kind of broadly three themes that are being discussed by these so-called wolf warriors on social media, and in particular on Twitter. So the first is that A, they're aiming to present China as being open, and Chinese diplomats as open to engagement with international audiences. Secondly, this is kind of a lot more longer term theme that we've seen over time, is framing China's rise to power as being peaceful and something that's positive for all international countries. And the third is kind of looking to counteract or negate critical stories, so stories criticizing Hong Kong protests or China's human rights records, and so looking to counteract these negative stories. So these are the broad three themes that are being discussed by these users, and these are changing over time as well.
Well, thank you so much. This is all very fascinating. If people want to know more, where should they look?
Yes, if you're interested in our reports, you can find them on our research group's website, which would be demtech.oai.ox.ac.uk, which is, as usual for UK universities, a very long web address. So if you want to have a shortcut, you can also find our Twitter accounts, and we've shared them extensively there over the past few weeks.
Just to add on to that as well, we also do a kind of monthly newsletter where we highlight trends in China's information operations, if you want kind of a broader context to our findings.
Well, very good. Very good. Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing your findings. I would definitely encourage all of our viewers to follow up on that. If you are interested in other videos from the University of Oxford China Center or other content, please do also visit our website or sign up for our YouTube channel at the University of Oxford China Center. So thank you again, and hope to see you soon. Bye.